many of the plants recognized by the Wangers seemed to be native to the Jerusalem area. They showed their findings to Israel's leading botanist, Avinoam Danin.
Using details of plant morphology, I was rather happy to confirm their observations. Then I looked more and more, and altogether I marked here about 12 or 13 objects, botanical objects, that I observed on the shroud.
One of the plants, Zygophyllum dumosum, was the key evidence for botanist Danin. Not only did he see its image on the cloth, but he found even more precise details than had the Wangers. Did this plant once lay on the Shroud of Turin?
We can see here the image of Zygophyllum dumosum. The winter leaf looks like that. This is the petiole.
Zygophyllum dumosum grows in only one place in the world, a small area near Jerusalem.
The 4 leaves I found is so clear that I can state that the stem of Zygophyllum dumosum was laid on the shroud in the spring. Additionally, I could say to you that it couldn't be that the shroud was made somewhere else. It had to be here.
If there were flowers around the body, there would also be pollen. Pollen can last thousands of years, and under the microscope, each type is distinctive. Clues too small for the naked eye, just waiting for the right detective. In 1973, the Swiss criminologist Max Frey was permitted to take samples of pollen from the weave of the shroud. He preserved them on glass slides. Trained as a botanist, he spent years analyzing their pollen content. He died before he could finish and publish his conclusions, but others have taken up the work. Using state-of-the-art technology, they can exactly identify each pollen grain and match it back to the plant. Uri Baruch is Israel's leading pollen expert. Working with Dr. Danin, he calculates the type and frequency of pollen on Frey's slides.
In the back of my mind that there are also canopods that have the same pollen type. And we haven't met this one before. It's the first instance of this pollen type.
The goal is to determine exactly which plants surrounded the body and which were the most prevalent. Of the 58 pollen types identified so far, 28 of the plants exist only in the Middle East. Proof that the cloth spent part of its history there. Many are still part of the lives of the people of the region, like Fagonia mollis.
The leaves of Fagonia mollis are used by the Bedouin in southern Sinai to heal superficial wounds. They take the green stems and leaves and burn it. The powdered ash is used to put on the wound. They call it uraga.
There is another Gundelia right now, Avinoam.
The slides have revealed an unusually high density of pollen from a plant called Gundelia terniforti. This particular sample came from an area next to the head of the man on the cloth.
You can see the spines, okay? Here one, here one, here one. And
the plant that left so much pollen in this spot on the shroud can be recognized by its flower, but it's better known for something else.
I have to use my knife because it's a highly spiny plant. This is Gundelia tourneforti, the thistle that has the highest frequency of pollen grains on the Shroud of Turin.
In this Greek Orthodox monastery, deep in the Sinai desert, is a very special painting of Jesus Christ, known as the Pantocrator. Many researchers are convinced that it was painted while looking at the shroud. It was painted in the 6th century.
We see on the icon that the eyes have a very large staring appearance. But if we rotate to the shroud, we see that the eyes on the shroud have the appearance of being wide and staring and a little off-center. We notice
Dr. Wanger has perfected a polarized light technique for comparing shroud images with other images, like the Pantocrator.
And as I rotate the filter looking at these two images on the screen, one image will fade into the other. We do this for exacting comparisons. On the icon, we can notice what appears to be a tear trickling down the cheek at this point. But if we rotate to the shroud, we actually find that there's a little stain, possibly a blood stain, running down the same place. If we drop down to the tip of the nose on the icon and then shift to the shroud, we notice the configuration of the nose is quite exacting. Looking down at the lips on the icon, we see that there are apparently chapped lips here. But if we look at the detail on the shroud, we notice that all of those marks are visible on the shroud.
Jesus was the most illustrated person in history, but the Bible never said what he looked like. How do we know? How do we know he had a beard? How do we know he had long hair? Where did artists get their imagery from?
Art historian Jack Riley has made a study of the face of Jesus in painting. Is there a common source for this image we all know so well? Each artist has his own view of the man. Suffering, triumphant, the Redeemer, the humble. Yet artists over the centuries have stayed within certain parameters that allow us to recognize the man as Jesus. What are the guidelines, and where did they come from? Riley and many other researchers believe there was a prototype Jesus that set the standard centuries ago. The search for that prototype has taken researchers back to the first centuries following Jesus' death.
How would an artist get from this image to this image, where we have the beard, no beard, the hair falling down, parted in the middle on both sides? Not here. This Jesus looks like a Roman god. He's painted in a youthful manner, doesn't have the same characteristics. The question is, what's missing? In the 1930s, French researcher Paul Vignon noted numerous markings on the paintings that have